Okay, people, hold on to your butts. This is insane, and it's happening so fast that I'm doing this unscripted live, just reacting to everything going on. So, late breaking news from last night: Warner is splitting apart officially. The game is afoot. It's finally here. The iceberg is crashing. The Ideon sword is slashing through the fucking planet. We do not know where the fucking pieces are about to lie. Here's the big news. For whatever reason, Zaslav has decided to jettison the cable companies out of Warner Brothers. So that's all we know, and that's vague. There's some pretty broad ideas that this means that Warner and Discovery are resplitting. The bad news is Zaslav intends to stay at Warner, and he intends to kick Discovery out. Essentially, he cruised in to take over Warner on Discovery like a pirate ship, and now he's sinking his original pirate ship. Yeah, there's a massive argument right now about how the split is going to go down. John Campea has this diagram that seems to indicate that he thinks the split is going to go on the one side will be Warner Brothers, HBO, and Max, and on the other side will be most of the old cable network channels that aren't making a profit anymore. His diagram is missing a few major channels of importance. The big ones that people are most concerned about are CNN and Cartoon Network. I'm going to say that it does seem like the way it's going right now is Warner Brothers and HBO is going to be on one side, and it seems like anything that was former Turner and anything that was former Discovery is the other side. Cartoon Network might be the sole exception. I feel like Adult Swim wants to hold on to HBO, and for that reason, they might hold on to Cartoon Network too. But there's also a chance there could be a sub-fracture, like maybe like Warner Brothers keeps Cartoon Network with the Cartoon Network originals, and maybe Discovery keeps like Boomerang with like all the Hanna-Barbera stuff. So that's a possibility. There's some insane ways this could go down. Shit. Yeah, so the interesting thing about this announcement is there's no clear, like, understanding of what is being jettisoned, just that Zaslav plans to sell off a bunch of the cable channels, and I get some information here from this Reuters article that it seems like the plan is that he's going to independently make them into a subsidiary where they would be responsible for their own success and failure, and possibly WB would still act as a content provider, selling them back their own TV shows, which doesn't really sound feasible. It also super doesn't sound feasible that who's going to invest in cable TV channels at this point in like the industry where like things are falling apart bad enough as it is. Like, if anything, it kind of seems like from my perspective, he's just jettisoning these so they can die independently on their own like ability to fail. It's kind of like cutting off an arm when your arm is poisoned. There's also a massive argument online about how the split's going to go and what's staying and what's going. The popular consensus seems that it's going to go HBO, Warner, and Turner Discovery. However, there's some debate on that. Like, for example, no one's sure which end of the fence Cartoon Network's going to lie. Everyone's pretty sure Zaslav wants to jettison CNN. There's a big argument right now that Max will keep True TV, TBS, and TNT, but I doubt it because, as I've already seen, Zaslav has been aggressively like harming those ones, although apparently TNT just signed some new sports contracts, so apparently if that's the case, then that was all for nothing. New Line Studios definitely stays with WB. Supposedly WP would keep all its game companies, even though those are also not doing great under Zaslav. Let's see what else. Yeah, supposedly this would free up most of the Turner channels except for Cartoon Network, which would stay with HBO. I don't know why everyone is insistent that Cartoon Network would stay on HBO, because Zaslav has been pretty anti on it, but I just don't see any proof on where Cartoon Network is ultimately going to lie. But the popular consensus is that HBO will keep them. All right, well, ultimately, there's not that much actual facts I can react to here, so I think that's kind of it. But what do you guys think? I guess overall this is bad because it kind of feels like these channels are being released into orbit so they can die on their own volition. I definitely can see TBS dying off. TBS, as it was, Zaslav was actively working to kill TBS. He's killed all their original programming. American Dad skied by on like the fiendishness of Seth MacFarlane that I did a whole nother video on. TNT is kind of a zombie channel as well. They haven't really been relevant since the 90s. Actually, let me go back to this like big like list of what channels are in play. It's ironic that Discovery, Food, and TLC will all be jettisoned. Oh, and HGTV too. I feel like those have all been like doing decently okay. Those are still like actively making things. Science Channel and Animal Planet, didn't they fuse together already? Because I feel like I haven't heard of Animal Planet in years at this point. I also think HBO absorbs Cinemax. That's another one I haven't heard of in years. And yeah, the Max name comes from Cinemax, right? Let's see what else. Turner Sports, no idea if that's still alive. Investigation Discovery, yeah, I guess that's still around. Eurosports, never heard of that one. Yeah, this is a big mess, I guess. One interesting takeaway from why this is ultimately happening is that Max is apparently failing as a streaming platform. To break that down more interestingly, so Discovery Plus was a cheap streaming service where like housewives would like watch their like, you know, true crime dramas and reality shows. And HBO Max is always this premium thing where you were promised all these really good high quality things like, you know, Game of Thrones, Westworld, all the WB movies, all the DC movies, all the Supermans, all the Justice Leagues, all that good shit. Ultimately, it's seeming that when they combined them together and made them even more expensive, the Discovery viewers were actually the ones that fell off, and therefore they weren't actually watching Max because they couldn't afford it. And meanwhile, the people who could afford HBO and only wanted the HBO shows were not watching the Discovery shows on Max. So ultimately, the way that experiment played out was that it was kind of a waste of everyone's time and everyone's money combining them together, because ultimately the two audiences just weren't compatible. So for that reason, it actually does make some sense to split them up. But yikes. Yeah, overall, this is just a freaking very unexpected move. I will say also that DC is staying with Warner for now, but DC is still in flux for the possibility of splitting off from Warner if Superman does bad, because that's really the only thing that's keeping them invested at the moment. Otherwise, they're just another pawn on the chessboard that Zaslav can sell to like buy himself another like pile of chicken nuggets. So yeah, it's kind of bleak. But again, what do you guys think? Leave me a comment, because this is not what I was expecting, but still equally as bad, I suppose. Yikes.